Hello, comrades, and welcome back to Ushanka Show. Здравствуйте, дорогие товарищи. My name is Sergey, and I was born in the USSR. Меня зовут Сергей, и я был рожден в Советском Союзе. Quite a few viewers asked me to share my thoughts about situation with crime in the Soviet Union, so that's the topic of today's video. So first of all, from my own experience, it felt extremely safe in Soviet Union my days. So I was born in 1971, grew up pretty much 70s and 80s, and I grew up as a so-called latchkey kid. Thank you. Quite a few people introduced me to this term, latchkey kid. So yeah, my parents were both gone to work, so when I came from school, I had an empty apartment. I had a key on my neck on a little rope. I opened my own apartment. I had my lunch. I did my homework, then I went outside to play with other kids. Because in Soviet Union, if you remember, it was illegal not to work, regardless if you have kids or not. I mean, you had some time after birth, and then you have to go work. So pretty much 99% of parents were at work while their kids, like school-age kids, they will come home from school and they'll be hanging out on their own, so-called latchkey kid. I love that term. So even with my parents being away, I had no concerns about my own safety. And besides hanging out with my friends like around the building and the playground, we quite often would walk somewhere to sneak at the factory to steal some stuff or go sledding like 2 miles away in the hills. My parents never had concerns about me, and I said I felt pretty safe. Of course, it doesn't mean there was no crime in Soviet Union. It's just a lot of it depends how the mass media informs about it. And in Soviet Union, they didn't really put out bad news. So car accidents, robberies, car crashes, train crashes, plane crashes, nothing of that was shown on TV or told on the radio or shown in newspapers. So it creates kind of this like a bubble of safety. You know, to compare with America, there's a lot of drama, a lot of news about any airplane crash, right? It'll be all over the news. But it happens so seldom comparing for amount of car accidents and how many people die every year in car crashes. I believe around 30,000 people die in America every year from car crashes and dozens maybe in airplane crashes. But because how the media portrays, a lot of people feel way safer to drive than to fly. And I recall one time there was a quite interesting situation with my wife. That was many years ago. I believe we were going to Ukraine to visit my parents. So my stepkids, my wife had 2 kids from first marriage. You know, they stayed with their dad. So I came home from work and I see my wife in tears. So I asked her what's going on. Apparently she was writing a goodbye letter just in case if we crash on the airplane, and it made her cry. And I was looking at it like, do you understand that every day that you take kids to school, you have 1,000 times higher chance to get killed on the way from home to school in our small town than a chance of us to crash while flying to Europe? And of course, since there was so little of personal cars in Soviet Union, generally vehicles on the roads, I never ever in my life saw any car accidents in Soviet Union. Like 20 years I lived in Kiev, right? Third biggest city in the Soviet Union. I never ever witnessed myself like car accident or aftermath of the car accident. Never. The only time I saw it is when I was by militia office and they had these outside signs and they were showing what happens if you're not a careful driver or if you drive under influence. So that was the only time when I saw actual pictures of car accidents. And a similar situation with crime, like there's hardly anything I remember that happened like about robberies or anything like that. But I remember my shock when one time we walked to the library and we walked by the militia offices again, different ones, and they had outside signs, so like this wanted pictures, right? So we call it разыскивается in Russian language. And I saw pictures of criminals, and I'll say, you know, they wanted for such and such crimes, and then name, and I was like, wow, you know, that's the first time I realized there's actually criminals out there in the Soviet Union. So as I said, we felt extremely safe. We didn't worry about, if you come home late at night in darkness, we didn't have like bad areas that you can get mugged. It was totally safe. You can come home, 3 o'clock in the morning. It's just as safe as 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Actually, my family was affected 3 times, but for this like a small crimes. First time I remember my dad told me a story, and maybe it happened when he was still single, but he was in Kiev, so he was in the bus, and he had his wallet in his back pocket. Maybe not in a wallet, like most people in Soviet Union, we even don't own wallets like guys. Ladies did, but the guys usually just kept cash in their pockets. So he was in the bus, it was packed, and he suddenly felt like something was touching his butt. So there was a guy, a pocket picker, or we say karmannik, was working his hand in his back pocket because he thought maybe my dad had some cash in there or something was in his back pocket, my guess. So my dad actually snatched his hand and, of course, he started yelling so other people could see. So he showed that he caught this guy with his hand in my dad's back pocket. And, of course, passengers then yelled to the driver. Driver stopped the bus. They dragged that dude off the bus, and my dad and a couple other guys just beat the crap out of him. And then they hopped back on the bus and they carry on. Then my very first bicycle got stolen, but I blame myself for that. We lived on the second floor, so it's a pretty, it's a large adult-sized bike, Minsk. So every time after I come back from riding it, I'll drag it up the stairs on the second floor. Then I had to drag it all the way through apartment to set up at the balcony. So it got old very quick, and so I became lazy and started parking the bike. So of course it got old very quick. I was like 13, 14-year-old kid. So I became lazy and I would just started parking. It's in the hallway by the trash. We had this place when you dump trash. And I guess I stored bike like that for a couple of weeks, Then I'm going to school all day, my parents at work, and one day I came home and my bike was gone. Of course, my parents were quite mad because it was like $100 bike. Pretty expensive, almost a monthly salary for my mom. But we didn't bother to notify militia, our police. It's just like they really were mad at me because I was, it was my fault. And many years later, when I was already going to college, so we're talking 1988, 89, I was a student in the Kiev Polytechnical Institute, and at that time, it was a popular thing to have a cool plastic bag with the picture, like I had Marlboro cigarettes, like that Marlboro Man on it, so people had cool pictures, like usually it was cigarette advertising or just pretty pictures. That was the first private enterprise people were making those bags. So I was on my way from college, riding a tram, and I had this Marlboro bag with my notepads and books. But then when I got off the tram and I was walking towards my apartment building, suddenly a book fell out of my bag, and I was shocked what happened. I looked, and there was this slice across my bag, and at first I didn't realize what happened. I just was upset. I thought maybe I caught it somewhere, but then cut was too clean. So someone in the tram kind of quietly approached me, and I kept the bag in front of me. So somehow they managed with the sharp blade slice my bag and checked inside because they thought I might have a wallet there or something valuable. So I was very mad because I really liked that Marlboro bag. So the most common crimes in the Soviet Union, at least in the big cities, there would be picking pockets, because you only can do it usually in mass transportation, public transportation. So when buses are crowded or trams are crowded, it's easiest kind of crime to do. Try to steal money out of the bag or out of people's pockets. Then of course, ограбление квартир, so stealing stuff from the apartments. But those, people who did that professionally, breaking into apartments and stealing stuff, they didn't just randomly break in any apartment, because a lot of people were quite poor, regular blue-collar workers, Soviet workers. So usually there was a system. There were people who, so-called navodchiki, so that's the people who, for money, will suggest which apartments to rob. So they know, like this guy, for example, he's the director of the factory and he has money. His wife always wear nice jewelry and nice coats. And then he maybe found out that they left for vacation to the Black Sea. So that's a perfect time. There's an apartment will be empty for for 10 days, whatever. And then he will give this information to the people who break into apartments, and they will clean up apartment while people will be gone on vacation. Then, of course, the topic about the golden youth. So they're, teenagers that parents were maybe traveling abroad as a diplomats or some other ways. So they will bring cool stuff home. So the kid will be wearing Levi's jeans or really cool sneakers. So I heard the cases because I never own cool clothing, so I had nothing to worry. There could be somewhere the kid can get stopped by some bad boys, and they will strip him, take his jeans, take his shoes, and the guy will be running home barefoot in his underwear. So those things happen in the 80s, but as I said, I never had cool clothes, so I had nothing to worry about. And then, of course, real criminals, they'll be robbing Sberkasse, so the offices of the savings banks, because the only bank we had in Soviet Union was Sberbank, savings bank. So there's a small outfit somewhere out far away, or they'll try to hit the stores, or so-called incassatori, when the people come to pick up cash from sales. So those criminal cases happen. And he said our society was strictly cash society, so that was a pretty much easy picking right there. And of course, since Soviet Union, Soviet people had a horrible problem with excessive drinking, alcoholism, so there were quite a few of crimes based on drunk people doing stupid crap, and we're talking about just the regular so-called hooliganism, to be a hooligan, so people damage equipment, the people damage windows, cars, beat each other. Then, of course, when they're drunk, they can get family arguments, so the husband can beat up wife or kill the wife with a knife or an axe. Since we didn't have people didn't have easy access or no access to weapons, we really didn't have any mass shootings or shootings. Period. Usually there'll be knives or axes, whatever people had handy. And of course, if you guys are interested to watch a good show about crimes in Soviet Union, I strongly recommend 1979 cult movie, Soviet movie. It's like mini-series called «Место встречи изменить нельзя». Can be translated like «Meeting place cannot be changed». A great show. It became very popular, and famous Soviet singer Vysotsky, he had a main role in that movie. We'll put the link below the video. So as I said, that's where I actually learned more about the pocket pickers and other like serious criminals, because that's what part of the show. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a great movie. It's like 5 hours total, but it shows like Odessa, so after World War II, so it's like early 50s situation in the Soviet Union. Great movie. I strongly recommend to watch that. Okay, so that's it for today about the crimes in Soviet Union. I'm planning to make more videos about some most famous or biggest crime cases in the USSR. We're not talking about corruption, that's a separate. I'm talking like criminal crimes, not financial crimes. But for today, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll talk to you soon. До свидания. Goodbye. Hey, by the way, the cool merch for cool comrades is available at the Ushanka store at teespring.com. And if you love my channel and would like to show your support, please click on the link below this video and become the patron of the Ushanka Show. For as little as $1, you can help us grow and create the new, interesting videos about the life in Soviet Union.